The morning sun shone bright over New Haven Colony. Katie Williams ran through the tall grass, her blonde hair flowing behind her like golden ribbons. She was 8 years old and loved everything about their new home world. The sky was bluer than Earth sky, and the flowers grew in colors she had never seen before. "Wait for me, Katie," called her brother Jake. He was 12 and always tried to keep up with his little sister. Their parents said Katie had energy like a rocket ship. She never walked when she could run, and she never whispered when she could shout with joy. Their farm sat on the edge of Pine Ridge Settlement, home to about 2,000 people. Daniel Williams grew corn and wheat in the rich soil. Laura Williams took care of the vegetable garden and raised chickens. Life was peaceful on New Haven. No wars, no crime, just families working hard to build something good. Katie stopped running and pointed at something moving in the bushes. "Look, Jake, Snowball got out again." Their pet rabbit had white fur soft as cotton. The little animal loved to escape from his pen and explore the wild meadows beyond their farm. "Dad will be mad if we lose him," Jake said. He was the responsible one, always thinking about what their parents would say. But Katie was already chasing after Snowball, laughing as the rabbit hopped deeper into the forest. The children followed Snowball for almost an hour. They walked farther from home than ever before. The trees grew taller here and strange birds sang songs they had never heard. Katie found flowers that glowed like tiny stars in the shadows. "We should go back," Jake said. He looked around at the unfamiliar forest. "Mom and Dad don't know where we are. Just a little more," Katie begged. She had caught Snowball and held him gently in her arms. "Look how pretty it is here. We can pick flowers for Mom." That's when they heard the strange noise. It sounded like thunder, but the sky was clear. The ground shook under their feet. Birds flew away from the trees, crying in fear. "What was that?" Katie asked. She wasn't scared yet, just curious. Everything was an adventure to her. Jake felt different. Something cold moved in his stomach. "I think we should run home now." But before they could move, the trees began to bend and break. A huge metal shape came down from the sky. It was bigger than their house, made of dark metal that seemed to heat the sunlight. Strange symbols glowed red along its sides. "Wow," Katie whispered. "Are they visitors from another world?" The metal ship landed with a crash that made the earth jump. A door opened with a hiss of cold air. 3 creatures walked out, and they looked nothing like humans. They stood 7 feet tall on thin legs like sticks. Their skin was gray as old, metal and covered in scales. They had 4 arms each, ending in claws sharp as knives. Their heads were long and narrow, with black eyes like holes in the night. Katie had never seen aliens before, but she had heard stories. Her teacher said that somewhere in the galaxy, other thinking beings lived on distant worlds. She had always wondered what they would be like. "Hello?" Katie called out, waving her free hand. Snowball wiggled in her other arm. "Are you from space?" "We're humans. I'm Katie, and this is my brother Jake." The aliens looked at the children. They spoke to each other in voices that sounded like metal scraping against stone. Their black eyes showed no warmth, no curiosity, no kindness. One of them, wearing more metal pieces on his chest, pointed a device at the children. It looked like a weapon, but Katie didn't understand what it meant. "Are you explorers?" Katie asked. She walked closer, holding out some of the glowing flowers she had picked. "These grow here. Aren't they beautiful? Do you have flowers on your world?" Jake grabbed his sister's arm. "Katie, don't go near them." Something about the aliens frightened him. They looked at the children like cats look at mice. "But they came so far to visit," Katie said. "Mom always says we should be nice to visitors." The alien with the most metal decorations made a sound, like laughter, but cruel and cold. He spoke in the human language, his voice rough and hard to understand. "Small vermin," he said. "Your kind spreads like disease across worlds that belong to the Zephyrian Empire. This ends now." Katie didn't understand the big words, but she heard the anger in his voice. "Did we do something wrong?" she asked. Her smile faded a little. "We can go home if you want to use this place." "Yes," the alien said. "You will go home. To the dirt where all vermin belong. He raised his weapon. Jake finally understood what was going to happen. He jumped in front of his little sister. Run. Katie, run home. But there was nowhere to run. The weapon made a sound like lightning. A beam of red light hit Jake in the chest. He fell down and didn't get up. Katie screamed her brother's name. She dropped Snowball and fell to her knees beside Jake. Wake up, please wake up. But Jake's eyes stared at the sky and saw nothing. The alien pointed his weapon at Katie. She looked up at him with tears on her face. Why did you hurt him? He was good. He took care of me. Because you exist, the alien said. That is crime enough. Katie didn't try to run. She held her brother's hand and whispered, I'm sorry, Jake, I'm sorry we came so far. The glowing flowers she had picked lay scattered around them like fallen stars. The red light came again. Katie fell beside her brother, still holding his hand. The aliens looked at the two small bodies for a moment. Then they walked back to their ship without another thought. To them, it was just another day of work. They had killed thousands of creatures on dozens of worlds. 2 human children meant nothing. The ship rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars. Only Snowball remained, sitting beside the children who had loved him. The white rabbit didn't understand death, but he knew something terrible had happened. He stayed with Katie and Jake until the search parties found them the next morning. The flowers Katie had wanted to give her mother lay crushed in the alien dirt. But the love in her heart, and the terror of her last moments, would soon echo across the entire galaxy. Daniel Williams ran faster than he had ever run in his life. His heart pounded like a hammer in his chest. Laura ran beside him, crying and calling their children's names. The search party spread out through the forest, 20 volunteers with flashlights and hope growing smaller with each passing hour. Katie! Jake! Daniel shouted until his voice cracked. They had been searching since sunset. Now the alien sons of New Haven cast strange shadows through the trees. Ryan Cooper, the colony administrator, led another group near the eastern ridge. He was a thin man with gray hair who had helped build Pine Ridge Settlement from nothing. He had seen families worry before, but never like this. The Williams children had never stayed out past dinner time. Over here, someone shouted. The voice came from deep in the forest, where the children had never been allowed to go alone. Daniel and Laura crashed through the bushes toward the sound. What they found made Laura fall to her knees and scream. Daniel stood frozen, unable to believe what his eyes showed him. Jake and Katie lay in a clearing where the grass was burned black. Their bodies were still and cold. Jake's arms were wrapped around his little sister, as if he had tried to protect her even in death. Strange scorch marks on the ground told a story of weapons no human had ever seen. Who could do this? Laura whispered through her tears. Who could hurt babies? Ryan Cooper knelt beside the bodies. He had been a soldier once before he became a farmer and then an administrator. He knew what energy weapons looked like. These burns came from technology far beyond anything humans possessed. Aliens, he said quietly. We're not alone out here anymore. Security cameras at the forest edge had recorded everything. Ryan watched the footage in his office while Daniel and Laura held each other and cried. The video showed creatures from another world, cold and cruel, murdering 2 children who had only wanted to be friendly. Ryan sent an emergency message to Earth that same night. The quantum communicator could send signals faster than light, but it still took days for messages to cross the galaxy. In the meantime, he shared the video with every human settlement in their sector. On Mars Colony, construction worker Tony Chen stopped building when he saw the footage on his work screen. He had 3 children of his own. The youngest was Katie's age. He sat down on a pile of metal beams and wept for children he had never met. On Europa Station, engineer Amy Foster watched the video while her daughter played nearby. The little girl was making paper dolls and singing a happy song. Amy hugged her tight and promised silently that no alien monster would ever touch her child. The footage spread through human space like wildfire. Every parent saw their own children, in Katie and Jake. Every person with a heart felt rage building like pressure in a reactor core. President Helen Carter received the message in her office on Earth. She was a strong woman who had led humanity through the great resource wars. She had seen death and violence before, but this was different. This was the murder of innocents by creatures who saw humans as insects to be stepped on. She called an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. Admiral Scott Hayes arrived first. He was a tall man with silver hair and eyes like blue ice. He had fought pirates in the outer colonies and rebels in the asteroid belt. He had never lost a battle, and he had never seen anything that made him angrier than the video from New Haven. "How many worlds do they control?" Carter asked. Dr. Lisa Murphy, the chief xenobiologist, had spent all night studying the alien images. "Based on their technology and behavior, I estimate they rule at least 40 star systems, maybe 50 billion individuals. And us? 12 billion humans across 37 worlds," Admiral Hayes said. "We're outnumbered 4-1. Intelligence." Director Paul Turner opened a secure file. "We've detected similar ships in 3 other sectors. They call themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They've been expanding for centuries, wiping out any species they consider inferior, which apparently includes us," Carter said. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook with rage. Commander Alex Rhodes volunteered to lead a secret mission into Zephyrian space. He was young for a commander, only 35, but he had grown up on the frontier colonies. He knew how to be invisible in hostile territory. "I need to know everything about them," Rhodes said. "Their weapons, their ships, their numbers. Most importantly, I need to know if they're planning to come back." His stealth ship, Shadowrunner, slipped across the border 2 weeks later. What Rhodes found made his blood freeze. The Zephyrians had files on dozens of species they had destroyed. Entire civilizations wiped out because they were cluttering up valuable planets. In their military records, the murder of Jake and Katie wasn't even mentioned. It was routine pest control to them. They expected no response from humanity. In their minds, humans were too primitive to fight back and too weak to matter. Rhodes also discovered something else. The Zephyrian Empire was old and comfortable. They had been winning easy battles for so long that they had grown lazy. Their newest ships were just copies of designs from 50 years ago. They hadn't needed to innovate because no one had ever challenged them. When Rhodes returned to Earth, he found a world transformed by anger. Every news channel showed Katie's face. Every politician demanded justice. Every military base buzzed with activity as humanity prepared for something it had never attempted before: war against an alien empire. President Carter addressed the human species in a broadcast that reached every settlement from Mercury to the edge of explored space. Her words were simple and clear. "They killed our children because they thought we were weak. They were wrong. Katie Williams was 8 years old. Jake Williams was 12. They died holding hands because one alien thought their lives meant nothing. We will show the galaxy what human lives are worth. We will show them what happens when you murder our babies." Admiral Hayes began mobilizing every warship humanity possessed. Factory ships started building weapons that had only existed in theory. Scientists worked around the clock on projects so secret that even their families didn't know what they were creating. On New Haven, Daniel and Laura Williams buried their children under earth oak trees they had brought as seedlings. The entire colony came to the funeral. No one spoke of revenge, but everyone felt it burning in their hearts. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their numbers. It was their love for their children and the terrible things they would do to anyone who threatened them. War was coming, and it would reshape the stars themselves. The great shipyards above Earth had never seen anything like it. Day and night, welding torches blazed like tiny stars as humanity built the largest war fleet in galactic history. Admiral Scott Hayes stood on the observation deck of the orbital command station, watching his dreams of vengeance take shape in steel and fire. "How many ships will we have?" President Carter asked. She had come to see the preparations herself, to witness humanity's transformation from peaceful farmers and traders into an engine of destruction. 500 combat vessels when we're finished," Hayes replied. "Every design we've ever dreamed of building, every weapon we've ever imagined using." The centerpiece was the dreadnought Terra's Wrath, a ship so massive that it had its own gravity. Its hull was 2 miles long and bristled with weapons that could crack moons. Beside it, the Solar Fury and New Earth's Pride took shape as monuments to human engineering and human rage. Dr. Kevin Ross worked 18 hours a day in the weapons laboratories below the surface of Luna. He was a quiet man who had once designed mining equipment for asteroid prospectors. Now he created tools of extinction that made him wake up screaming from nightmares. "The quantum disruption torpedoes are ready," he reported to Admiral Hayes during their weekly briefing. "One torpedo can destabilize a star system. The chain reaction will sterilize every planet within 50 billion miles. And the biological weapons? The nanoplague is calibrated specifically for Zephyrian DNA. It will target their nervous system, causing complete organ failure within hours. It's designed to spread through their atmosphere and water supplies. Once deployed, it will make their worlds uninhabitable for their species while leaving the ecosystems intact." Hayes nodded grimly. "And the antimatter charges? Sufficient to crack any planet they value. Each charge contains enough energy to split a world like an egg." Colonel Nancy Blake trained the ground assault forces on the hidden side of Mars. She was a small woman with iron in her spine and fire in her eyes. Her soldiers called her the Reaper because she taught them to kill without mercy or hesitation. "These aliens don't understand human warfare," she told her officers. "They're used to fighting primitive civilizations with sticks and stones. They've never faced an enemy that fights with their heart as well as their mind." Her special forces practiced urban combat in mock alien cities. They learned to use Zephyrian architecture against its builders. They studied alien psychology until they could predict how their enemies would react to fear, pain, and desperation. Factory manager Linda Gray converted every manufacturing plant on Earth to war production. Farms became ammunition factories. Schools became training centers. Even children collected scrap metal for the war effort, their small hands driven by rage over Katie and Jake Williams. "My grandson is Jake's age," Gray told her workers. "Every rivet we make, every plate we forge, we make it for those babies who died in an alien forest. We make it so no human child ever dies that way again." The preparations took 18 months, but they felt like 18 years to the families who had seen the footage from New Haven. Every delay was another day that the aliens who killed Katie and Jake breathed free air. Every setback was another moment that justice waited while evil creatures celebrated their casual cruelty. Intelligence operative Jason King slipped into Zephyrian space 6 times during the preparation period. He was a ghost who spoke their language and wore their clothing and learned their secrets. What he discovered filled humanity with cold determination. "They've completely forgotten about us," King reported during his final briefing. "The attack on New Haven isn't even in their recent files. To them, we're nothing. They've allocated 0 resources to defending against human retaliation because they can't imagine we're capable of it." Captain Steve Roberts commanded the stealth reconnaissance ship Silent Thunder. He was a hunter by nature, patient and careful, who spent months mapping every Zephyrian military installation in 3 star systems. "Their fleet is spread thin," Roberts reported. "Most of their ships are older designs, barely maintained. They haven't fought a real war in over a century. They're comfortable, lazy, and completely unprepared for what we're bringing." The Vengeance fleet assembled in the empty space between stars, far from any world that might witness their gathering. 500 warships in perfect formation, each one carrying the concentrated fury of 12 billion human hearts. Admiral Hayes walked the corridors of Terra's wrath and saw faces he would remember forever. Captain Greg Turner, whose daughter was Katie's age. Commander Beth Moore, whose son played the same games Jake had loved. Major Chris Anderson, whose wife had cried for 3 days after watching the footage from New Haven. They were ordinary people transformed into instruments of divine wrath. They carried pictures of their own children alongside images of Katie and Jake Williams. They knew that what they were about to do would echo through galactic history, and they accepted that burden gladly. President Carter sent one final message to the Zephyrian Empire before the fleet departed. It was broadcast on every frequency their ships could receive, translated into their language by human computers that had learned to speak alien tongues. "You killed 2 human children named Katie and Jake Williams. They were 8 and 12 years old. They offered you flowers and friendship. You murdered them because you thought we were too weak to respond. You were wrong. We are coming for you. Every ship, every world, every life in your empire will pay for what you did to our babies. This is not a negotiation. This is not a warning. This is a promise. You will learn why killing human children was the last mistake your species will ever make. The Zephyrian High Command received the message and laughed. Primitive humans threatening the masters of 40 star systems. It was amusing enough that they forwarded it to their friends as a joke. They stopped laughing when their border sensors detected 500 human warships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of their territory. They stopped breathing when long-range scanners revealed weapons that shouldn't exist and energy signatures that made no scientific sense. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath and looked at the star maps showing Zephyrian space. 50 billion aliens lived in those systems. 50 billion creatures who had allowed their government to murder human children without consequences. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet. This is Admiral Hayes. You know why we're here. You've seen the faces of Katie and Jake Williams. You felt the rage that burns in every human heart. Today, we teach the galaxy what happens when you mistake our compassion for weakness. Today we show them what human love looks like when it's been transformed into human vengeance. The Vengeance fleet moved forward like death itself, carrying the fury of a species that had learned too late that the universe was not a safe place for children who offered flowers to monsters. War had come to the Zephyrian Empire, and it wore a human face filled with righteous anger. The Vengeance fleet emerged from hyperspace like avenging angels wreathed in fire and fury. 500 human warships appeared simultaneously across 17 Zephyrian star systems, their weapons already charged and their targets already selected. The aliens had expected no warning because they had given Katie and Jake Williams no warning. Admiral Hayes broadcast his message on every frequency the Zephyrians used. His voice was calm and cold as winter death. You killed our children. Now learn why that was a mistake. The war began in the same instant across light years of space. Human ships struck with precision that the Zephyrians had never witnessed before. Every shot was calculated, every target was chosen for maximum psychological impact, and every death was a payment toward the debt owed to 2 murdered children. Captain Greg Turner led the assault on Zephyria Prime's orbital defenses. His ship, the Righteous Fury, bore images of Katie and Jake Williams painted on its hull like war paint. The Zephyrian defense stations had never faced weapons like humanity brought to bear. Target their command center first, Turner ordered. I want them to know we're here before they die. The quantum disruption torpedoes hit the defense stations like the fist of an angry god. Metal and alien flesh vaporized in flashes of light bright enough to be seen from the planet's surface. Within 10 minutes, the orbital defenses that had protected the Zephyrian homeworld for 3 centuries were nothing but expanding clouds of radioactive dust. Commander Beth Moore directed her squadron against the Zephyrian Military Academy on Korvac Station. She was a mother whose children slept safely in human space, while alien children trained to kill across the galaxy. The irony was not lost on her, as she prepared to orphan an entire generation of young Zephyrians. These cadets will never grow up to murder human babies, she told her gunners as they targeted the academy dormitories. Katie and Jake Williams have been avenged before these monsters even knew they were under attack. The academy burned like a torch in the vacuum of space. 3,000 young Zephyrians died in their beds dreaming of conquest and glory. They woke up in hell instead, where human fury had transformed their dreams into nightmares of fire and death. Major Chris Anderson commanded the ground assault on Korvac Station itself. His Marines wore armor decorated with flowers like the ones Katie had tried to give her killers. They moved through the alien corridors like death itself, showing no mercy to any creature that carried Zephyrian blood. Remember the children, Anderson shouted as his troops advanced. Every alien we kill is one less monster that can hurt human babies. The battle for Korvac Station lasted 72 hours. Anderson's forces fought without rest, driven by a rage that made them stronger than human flesh should be. They didn't stop to eat or sleep or tend their wounds. They were animated by pure fury, sustained by the memory of 2 innocent faces that would never smile again. When the station finally fell, Anderson found the records room where the attack orders on New Haven had been filed. The casual nature of the paperwork made his blood boil. Katie and Jake's murders had been routine pest control, filed between reports on asteroid mining and cafeteria menus. Dr. Ross's nanoplague weapons proved devastatingly effective on 3 Zephyrian colony worlds. The invisible death spread through their atmosphere like the wrath of an angry god. Aliens died in their homes, in their streets, in their places of work and worship. They had no defense against weapons designed by human genius and powered by human love. Within hours, 3 worlds that had housed 30 million Zephyrians became tomb worlds where only the wind moved through empty cities. The planets themselves remained green and growing, ready for human families who would never fear alien monsters in the dark. Intelligence Director Turner tracked down Commander Vex Korath on a military base in the Rigel system. The alien officer, who had personally killed Katie, and Jake was found cowering in a bunker surrounded by bodyguards who died without slowing down the human assault teams for even a moment. "Please," Korath begged in broken human language when they dragged him from his hiding place. "I did not know. I followed orders. I am sorry for your children." Colonel Blake looked at the alien commander with eyes like frozen nitrogen. "You're sorry now? You weren't sorry when you pulled the trigger. You weren't sorry when an 8-year-old girl offered you flowers and you burned her down like an animal." They took Korath back to a human ship where they had prepared a special room. The walls were covered with images of Katie Williams smiling, laughing, playing with her brother. They forced the alien to watch footage of her final moments over and over again, until he understood exactly what he had destroyed. She was innocent, Blake told him as he wept alien tears. She was pure and good and kind. She wanted to be friends with you. And you killed her because you thought her life meant nothing. Korath lived for 3 days in that room, watching Katie's smile and hearing her voice asking why he had hurt her brother. On the 4th day, he begged them to end his suffering. Blake obliged him with the same casual cruelty he had shown to human children. The Zephyrian fleet tried to mount a counterattack, but their ships were designed for fighting primitives with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. They had never faced opponents who could fold space-time like origami, or turn entire star systems into weapons. Captain Roberts commanded the Silent Thunder in a dance of death through the Zephyrian home fleet. His ship was invisible to their sensors, a ghost that appeared just long enough to deliver death before vanishing again into the dark between stars. "This is for Katie," he whispered as his torpedoes tore through a Zephyrian dreadnought. "This is for Jake," he said as another enemy ship exploded like a dying star. The Zephyrians tried to surrender after losing half their fleet in the first week of fighting. They broadcast pleas for mercy on every human frequency, begging for negotiation, and promising to never harm human colonies again. Admiral Hayes received their surrender offers on the bridge of Terra's Wrath. Around him, his officers waited to hear how he would respond to alien pleas for the mercy they had never shown to human children. "Send them this," Hayes told his communications officer. He held up a photograph of Katie Williams holding her pet rabbit, her face bright with the joy of an innocent child who believed the universe was full of friends she hadn't met yet. "Tell them this is our answer. Tell them Katie Williams offered them friendship and they chose murder instead. Tell them they made their choice on New Haven and now we've made ours. There will be no mercy because they showed none. There will be no negotiation because they gave our children no chance to beg for their lives. They wanted to teach humanity its place in the galaxy. We've learned that lesson. Our place is at the top of the food chain, standing over the graves of species too evil to live." The war continued with mechanical precision and human fury. Every Zephyrian world burned. Every alien ship died. Every member of their species learned what it meant to face an enemy that fought not for territory or resources, but for the memory of murdered children who had died holding hands in an alien forest. The galaxy watched in awe and terror as humanity transformed from peaceful colonists into the most efficient killing machine the universe had ever seen. They had awakened something in human nature that had slept since the days when early humans fought saber-toothed tigers with nothing but pointed sticks and desperate love for their young. Katie and Jake Williams were avenged 1,000,000,000,000 times over, as the Zephyrian Empire burned like a funeral pyre lit by human hands and fed by alien blood. 3 years after the first human ships crossed into Zephyrian space, the galaxy had learned a new truth. The species that built hospitals for wounded animals and wrote songs about flowers had also built the most terrible war machine in galactic history. The Zephyrian Empire was gone, erased from existence like a bad dream that leaves only shadows and whispered warnings. President Helen Carter stood in the Memorial Garden on New Haven, where Katie and Jake Williams lay buried beneath oak trees. From Earth, the graves were simple, marked only with their names and the dates of their short lives. But around those graves, the galaxy had been transformed. They were just children, Daniel Williams said quietly. He and Laura had aged decades. In 3 years, their hair gone white from grief that would never fully heal. They just wanted to make friends. They did make friends, Carter replied, looking at the crowds of humans and aliens who had come to pay their respects. They made friends of every decent species in the galaxy, and they showed us who our enemies really were. The Memorial Garden was built on the exact spot where Katie had offered flowers to her killers. Now children from dozens of worlds played safely in the meadows where 2 human babies had died. The garden was protected by defense shields that could stop planet-killer weapons, but the real protection came from something simpler and more powerful. Every species in the galaxy now knew what happened to creatures that harmed human children. Admiral Hayes, now known throughout space as the Angel of Vengeance, commanded the largest fleet in galactic history. Human ships patrolled the trade routes between stars, keeping order with a gentle hand backed by overwhelming force. Pirates had become extinct within 6 months of the Zephyrian War's end. No one wanted to test whether humans would show mercy to common criminals when they had shown none to child killers. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it's been in 1,000 years, Hayes told his staff during their weekly briefing aboard Terra's Wrath. Crime is down 90% across all inhabited systems. Wars between alien species have dropped to almost nothing. Everyone's too afraid of accidentally provoking us. The former Zephyrian territories had been transformed into human protectorates. 50 worlds that once housed alien oppressors now welcomed human families seeking new homes and new lives. The terraforming technology recovered from Zephyrian archives had advanced human science by centuries. Dr. Lisa Murphy led teams of scientists through abandoned alien cities, cataloging technologies that would reshape human civilization. They had machines that could rebuild entire atmospheres in months instead of centuries, she reported. Medical devices that could cure diseases we've never even seen before. Engines that could push ships to 90% of light speed, and they used all of it to murder children, Captain Roberts observed. He commanded one of the exploration vessels pushing into uncharted space beyond the old Zephyrian borders. They had the technology to be gods, and they chose to be monsters instead. The surviving Zephyrians lived as refugees on the galactic rim, their few remaining ships overcrowded with civilians who told horror stories about human vengeance. They had become the galaxy's cautionary tale, a reminder of what happened to species that mistook human kindness for weakness. Other alien civilizations competed to establish friendly relations with humanity. The Altarian Federation sent ambassadors, bearing gifts for human children. The crystal mines of Vega offered to share their mathematical secrets in exchange for human protection. The flower people of Proxima actually worshipped Katie Williams as a saint who had saved the galaxy from Zephyrian tyranny. Captain Eddie Parker, who had grown up playing with Jake Williams before the family moved to New Haven, now commanded the exploration ship New Frontier. Every human vessel carried the same message for any alien species they encountered. A hologram of Katie Williams offering flowers to the camera, her smile bright with innocent joy. "This is who we are," the message said in 1,000 alien languages. "We protect our children. We cherish life. We offer friendship to any species that comes in peace. But if you harm our young, if you threaten our innocent, if you mistake our love for weakness, then you will learn why Katie Williams's name is whispered in fear across the galaxy." The Williams family farm had been rebuilt exactly as it was before the tragedy, but now it served as a memorial and museum. Families brought their children to see the bedroom where Katie had slept, the kitchen where she had eaten breakfast on her last morning, the garden where she had played before following her pet rabbit into the forest. She would have been 11 now, Laura Williams told visitors as she showed them through their daughter's preserved bedroom. She would have been starting to think about boys and makeup and all the things little girls dream about. Instead, she became the most famous child in galactic history. The Katie Williams Memorial Foundation had been established with unlimited funding from every human government. Its mission was simple: to ensure that no alien species ever again underestimated humanity's capacity for both love and vengeance. Foundation. Director Nancy Blake, the former colonel who had trained humanity's ground forces, oversaw the construction of monitoring stations throughout former Zephyrian space. "We watch everything," she explained to concerned alien ambassadors. "Every ship that moves, every message that's sent, every species that shows signs of aggressive expansion. We learned our lesson on New Haven. We'll never be caught unprepared again." The galaxy's children grew up hearing bedtime stories about Katie and Jake Williams, the human babies whose deaths had reshaped the stars themselves. To human children, they were heroes who had saved humanity from alien monsters. To alien children, they were reminders that humans would sacrifice everything to protect their young. 5 years after the war's end, humanity controlled the largest territory in galactic history, but in every human settlement, no matter how large or small, there was a memorial garden where children played safely under the protection of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever known. Daniel and Laura Williams lived quietly on their rebuilt farm, tending their crops and raising their animals and remembering their children every day. They had been offered wealth and fame and positions of power, but they only wanted to honor Katie and Jake's memory by living the simple life their family had always known. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, when the alien suns set over New Haven, they could almost hear Katie's laughter echoing from the meadows where she had played. They could almost see Jake chasing after his sister, trying to keep her safe as older brothers do. The children were gone, but their legacy lived on in every human ship that sailed between the stars, in every alien species that chose peace over war, in every civilization that learned to value life over conquest. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Human children were precious beyond measure, and the species that loved them was capable of terrible things when that love was threatened. It was a lesson written in the ashes of the Zephyrian Empire, spoken in whispers across 1,000 worlds, and remembered by every parent who tucked their little ones safely into bed. Katie Williams had wanted to make friends with the universe. In the end, she had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. The galaxy was at peace because it remembered her smile and feared her species' tears.